Good morning. This is a book talk day. Amen. Wow, what a brand new year. We're going to talk about this book by Pastor Pang Jiil, my spiritual mentor, and his book number 28 on this particular theme, 본대로 들은 대로, which means what I have seen and what I have heard. So this spiritual mentor of mine, and I've been benchmarking him for many years now. He writes essays as he travels. This was published 2007 on May 25th. And this is his What I've Seen and What I've Heard book series number 28. He published 28 books on this series alone. So what he does is as he travels, he just writes essay, anything from smoking section in airplane versus the historical facts about location he has visited and personal reflection, whatever, just writes. And that's so awesome. He writes in the introduction, this is the 103rd book that I published so far. Wow. Well, he published ultimately 114 books before he passed on. So he published his 103rd book on 2007, and then he published 11 more books before he passed on. He passed away at 204. So, wow, he was in his early 90s probably when he was publishing this. He said, this is the 103rd book that I'm publishing, and I'm so happy that I could do this. And he writes, primarily, I write these books, although I don't have too many readership. I want to give the resource to my mentees, my disciples, that they'll have some reference. He says that he wrote a commentary on every books of the Bible. So he wrote 66 books on commentary. Oh my goodness. And then on and on and on. I'm just so thrilled as I was reading this book again for a book talk. I finished it before, but I just kind of thoroughly going again and enjoying it. The way he talks about his travel and the people he met, and he really has a photographic memory. He remembers everything. He talks about, something that happened 1947, and then he lists about 15 names of that event and the people he met, and then know them intimately, all the details about them. He talks about visiting Cook Island and then visiting D.L. Moody's home. This is and takes pictures. So he keeps a journal, diary, and also his reflection on D.L. Moody, leaves a photo. And I've been to D.L. Moody house, and I sort of did talk about it, but not to this extent. It's amazing, and I'm more inspired. He talks about JAMA, Jesus Awakening Movement of 2006. I was an international board member of JAMA. So, but now if someone asks me, so what is JAMA about? I wouldn't know. Completely forgot. He writes full essay on JAMA and the importance of it. And he talks about small things like, they no longer serve food in airplane. I was coming from Orlando to LA and they did not serve any food, so it was very difficult. It's just so hilarious. One time we were celebrating his 100th birthday in LA, and we flew him from Korea to LA, and we're celebrating huge, like I think something like 500 people showed up for his birthday. So we were rent the biggest church here, and the pastor's host, and we're honoring him. And I was waiting in his um, place of stay, and lodging. They have a mission center, so I was waiting there. And he walks in. I said, Pastor, it's 100-year celebration. Aren't you tired? I mean, because he landed at 2 o'clock and dinner was at 5:30, and he flew from Seoul. I'm like, man, because we told them to do day after, but there was miscommunication. He said, oh, I'm not tired. Bob, can you turn on the internet? Because I got to check my email. I'm like, wow, 100-year-old. And then he opened up his wallet and they show me, Bob, do you have this card? What is that? It's a million miler. Korean Air. I'm like, wow. What, 14 years ago? It took me many years later that I reached 500,000. So, because I've been flying 100 years, it was humorous. Well, in this book on page 79, now I know why he gave me this book to me. Because page 79, he talks about at Dominican Republic Mission Conference, how he met a little boy named that my kindergarten graduate, Oh Seok-kwan. That's me, Robert O. And he writes that how he was so shameful when his church that he planted was celebrating 60th birthday, that he couldn't really name anybody, a pastor or missionary produced by his church. And he said he was so ashamed. But now, he says, not only Oh Seok-kwan, but Shin Gi-hwang. And then he even took pictures and wrote so thoroughly about what we do and what we've done, and his aspiration for us. And he's so happy that Shin Gi-hwang works for IMB, International Mission Board of Southern Baptists. And wow. And crazy thing is that when I look at this picture, my heart just went like this, because both Shin Gi-hwang and Pastor Bang passed away. I'm the only one surviving in this picture. So I thought, wow. But he writes about this wonderful, wonderful, and thoroughly, and he knows details about our family. How, I met Oh Seok-kwan, and his father was a dermatologist at the Rotary of Yeongdeung-po, and his mother was a part of her kindergarten, and she was the PTA president, and on and on and on. I mean, it's unbelievable how he remembers all this and keeps, and then actually made a record. And the next chapter, he talks about, as I said, things about how smoking smell bothers him in the airplane. And then he said it used to, that airplane had a smoking section and non-smoking section, but it didn't really matter because, airplane, I mean. And then I thought, wow, hilarious. I remember those years. I was traveling and during that time, and how desperately we wanted to move into non-smoking section, but you could still smell. And then he introduced in page 90, Yu-tae-in, my Esther mom. I have a spiritual mother named Esther, and her husband is my spiritual father, San Choi. So I only knew her as Esther mom or Choi Samonim, but I didn't know her Korean name was Yu-tae-in. Yu-tae-in literally means Jews. Jewish people are called Yu-tae-in in Korean. And he writes about her and how she has a very peculiar, strange faith, but really complimenting her, because she basically had all kinds of disease, all kinds of sickness, but she would not give in to the sickness or be addicted to pills. But she actually went against doctor's recommendation, kept her faith pure. But at the same time, she also critiqued her of maybe she should have listened to doctors a little bit, compromised a little bit. But anyways, he honors her for her unique faith. Wow, awesome. And then some historical facts he writes as he visits, like Jeju Island. he says that you should not call Jeju island because they no longer island, but it's considered one major district of Korea. And I thought, you're right, because nobody calls Australia island, right? It's continent. So Jeju Island people do not want to be part of the island people. They want to be part of just South Korea. I thought that was pretty unique. And then some of his writing was very poetic. He was kind of playing with words, with manna. Manna in Hebrew means, what is it? So he says, well, what is it? And then he kind of wrote a whole thesis on that, or discourse on that, and I thought it was very, very important, unique. And then, boy, he dedicated good, I would say about 30, 40 pages on Cambodia, because he visits Cambodia 2006. He visits Cambodia 2006, November 21. And this book was published 2007, May. So the very final journey that he has done is through Cambodia. And then as he goes through Cambodia, he writes his self-reflection at Intercontinental Hotel. That was very interesting because I've been there. I never slept there because it was like $230 per night. And when hotel was like $30. So this is top of the line Intercontinental. And that's such a luxury hotel that I would actually go there with my tuk-tuk, which is, converted motorcycle, like rickshaw. But my tuk-tuk driver cannot enter by himself because they would not let that. Only the car, expensive cars come in. So he actually sits there looking out because he's honored guest. Of course, they're going to put him there. I'm not saying anything wrong with that. He just sits there and says, how come I'm sitting at this luxurious hotel and looking at these people working so hard? Where is human rights? Where is equality in this? And how do I make contribution to the equality of the people outside? What am I doing there? I mean, this whole self-reflection is amazing. And it's so profound. And I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. This is so good. And then he promote a lot of missionaries in Cambodia. Oh Tae-gun is one of them. I never knew him. Lee Sung-min is someone that I know and work closely. So, wow. And then what he did, what was it about? And then talked about Choi Yun-chul, who had a cancer and overcame cancer and doing a great job. And then talks about historical aspect of Mekong River. And then talks about a center by Kim Byung-gyu from Pakistan, and he writes about him, many pages. I said, oh my Lord. He talks about the traffic situation in Cambodia. He talks about S-21, Khmer Rouge. He talks about Pyongyang Naengmyeon, because he's from North Korea. He talks about the famous cold noodle from Pyongyang. I mean, Pyongyang, we always talk about noodle, Pyongyang noodle. And then he actually went to the North Korean restaurant and met some ladies from Pyongyang. And he talks about all these different kind of food the restaurant serve, 청포, 녹두, 감자, and and I'm thinking, wow. And then he writes, I'm so saddened by the fact that these beautiful girls are enslaved by the system, serving at Cambodia, but they cannot go back to Pyongyang, or they cannot get out. And so, And then finally he wrap up his book in Malaysia, Kona Kinabalu, on the mountain 8,000 feet. There's a sauna. So sauna in Malaysia, and he just writes all the way, talks about how Chinese missionaries are now God's gonna raise, and he talks about the future of Chinese mission and the whole Back to Jerusalem movement. Actually was misquoted by, or mistranslated by some English missionary. It wasn't Back to Jerusalem. It was Go Back Westward Mission. It's called Preach Everywhere, Go West Mission movement. And that started in the 1940s. And see, that's more biblical mission movement than any other stuff they were trying to do, like unreached group, and all this kind of, now we find out it's kind of nonsense. Well, gospel moved ever since westward, so let's complete the westward, preach everywhere movement. And he says, I'm very proud that God's gonna raise Chinese as a missionary. Very prophetic book. Well, I pray that, well, for some of the English speaker, you'll never be able to read this book because I don't think anybody will translate this book into English. I mean, we should, but we don't have means at this point. Like Soren Kierkegaard's book, he wrote everything in Danish language, and everything that he wrote, including whatever dribbled down on the napkin, has been translated to English. And I almost feel like, man, we need to translate everything he wrote, 114 books, into English. That's not going to take that much money or whatever, but they don't have understanding. And I got permission from him to translate all his books, so I'm working on 10 books initial project, and we just finished second books, and we're going to launch the third book this year, 2022. So Lord bless you. I pray that maybe a challenge would be, maybe you should start writing a diary to start, and just self-reflection and things that God spoke to you. Leave some legacy of writing. No one has to read it. And for you personally, and for your children and grandchildren, I've been writing diary since when I was 15. So 45 years of writing. I sometimes reflect on what I wrote 45 years ago. I get goosebumps knowing how immature I was, and how it was God's grace that led me thus far. So anyways, Lord bless you. I'll see you tomorrow. Mwah.